So Moses is up on the mountain, receiving the commandments of God, the 10 utterances written on stone tablets. The stone tablets, like we see here, they've got the rounded top, right? They're actually not rounded. They were not squares. What do you call it? Rectangles. There we go. They're rectangles that fit in the Torah ark, in the Ark of the Covenant itself, laid on the bottom, had enough room for the fingers to get in to lift it up and everything. And there was two of them, one for God and one for the people, because it's based on the Serzanti Treaty that you see historically from that time period. So each side had its own copy, like you would today in lawyers and stuff like that. Always a duplicate, right? You get one, they get one. Of course, in some cases, you got three or more, but at least two copies for each side, right? And so, so as we see, Moses is up there receiving this stuff, but in the meantime, Israel, not all Israel, troublemakers, people who just weren't comfortable with not being able to see God. Sure, they heard God's voice. They recognized that. They heard God's voice, but they weren't comfortable that they couldn't see him, that they couldn't make something tangible, that he's this invisible God, but there's got to be some way of being able to describe him. And of course, you've got Moses left Aaron and Hur in charge, okay? And we see Aaron, who's going to be, he doesn't know this at the time, but he's going to become the high priest of God. And Aaron and Hur are in charge, but we don't see anything about Hur. Well, where is he? Why isn't he standing up and facing them? Well, according to tradition of the sages and the elders and stuff, is that Hur did stand up against them and he was killed. And that just left Aaron. Aaron seeing what happened. So he did like anybody else would probably do, save his life. He just went ahead and went with it, allowed it to happen. And this group was a small group, as we see. It was only about 3,000 people, right? So, of course, those with the squeaky wheel get the grease, right? Get the oil. And we see that even in our country today, these small little groups that are woke, that are trying to say evil is good and good is evil, coming against the 10 utterances of God, saying that they're immoral. So we're seeing that, but they're small groups, but yet they are the loudest. Why? Because people who should be standing up aren't standing up. We're expecting other people to do it.
You know who said it? Sometimes all it takes for evil to triumph is for a good man.
Yeah. For evil to triumph, it takes good people to do nothing, basically. Yeah. And that's what happens. That's what we see here. So it's not something that's old. It's not something that's new that's happening today. It's something that's gone on for a long time. And it's time as God's people that we need to stand up. Aaron didn't do it. Hur did. It costed him his life. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes that's what we have to do. We need to stand up for what is right, even if that means the end of our life, right? And so Aaron went along with it. He took and built them this golden calf. I hear people say, well, it's okay to do to have idols of Jesus and Mary and stuff like that in church and stuff like that, and all these other, as long as you're in the right spirit, right? As long as you're in the right spirit of things, it's God knows our hearts, right? And so he's not going to be against it. Well, he knew their heart too. And when we look at them, we see that they weren't worshiping another god or anything. Said this is the God, this represents the God who led us out of it. He's tangible now. We can touch him. We can see him. Culture that they were from. They weren't calling him some other god or deity. They were calling him God. Okay? That this is God. So this is a little bit different about idols and stuff. Then you have images. Images of and people worship it. Images of whether you worshiping the picture or not, the thing is, it's an image. It's a graven image, and God is against both the graven image and the idol. Generally, those which are false gods that they make. An image is what we tend to put God's name on. Okay, and we can't do that. No matter what your spirit of worship that you have in mind, we have to be careful of these things. But it's it's really up to you to look at and seek and find what is the truth there for you. Your conviction. I know some people look at things a little bit differently, but it's all up to us. Because what I want was wrong with myself until you figure it out. It's not. But when you figure it out and you see it, then it becomes yours. And that's what God taught us about studying. That when we study these things, when the hidden things are made known to us, it's ours. But the things that remain hidden are for him. He will help us to see these things as we grow, as we need to know. It's kind of the old saying, need to know basis and you don't need to know. Right? God says, I'll reveal it to you when you're ready. But for now, we'll just keep walking with the light that we do have. Right? And so Israel built this image, golden calf. We don't know what it really looked like. Did it look like, I see some stuff, they look like the Egyptian calves, that were there. Huh?
Was it Nibus?
No.
They had kind of like
It's-
a straight form.
It was the cattle that they had these real long horns that kind of went up. Would it look like that? I don't know. It could have. Of course, in the Egyptian ones, they had a big old center gold sun that sat in between the horns. But we don't know what it looked like. It doesn't matter what it looked like. But they called it, as Aaron says, this is God. Right? This is God who has led us out of Egypt. Right? And the thing is, the people grew weary. Moshe was gone for 40 days. They didn't know what happened to him. Did he die? Because in our thoughts, well, he didn't go up with any food. He didn't go up with any water. He's been gone for 40 days. So that would kill anybody. But they didn't realize the power that God had. That even Yeshua said, when his disciples brought him food and stuff, and he said, no, I've already had food that you don't know about, that you don't understand.
It's interesting because Yeshua too spent
40 days in the wilderness, yep. So, in the wilderness, yes. The wilderness experience. I hear a lot of people talk about that. This is the wilderness experience.
One good thing
Egypt,
in the desert,
huh?
no mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes, yeah. Israel came out of Egypt they had their own understanding and stuff, but they had adopted many of the Egyptian customs. And one of the customs was that the Egyptians seen their gods. They could touch their gods. They could do all these different things, but here God is invisible to them. But they heard his voice. They seen the fire. They seen the smoke. They heard his voice. And yet, this small group gained strength and power over 3 million people, right? And caused a great sin to come upon them. But they were worshiping God in the right spirit because they were worshiping God, right? They're worshiping God. No, because God has a way that he wants to be worshipped. Even Rav Shaul said that God is a God of order, and he has an order for his worship. the way he wants to be worshiped. And one of them is by no image, no substitute, no anything that we could construe as being him. Just
And so if we try to, we'd be mimicking him if we were trying to create something that looks like him.
yeah, it's kind of like in this one movie I heard. Um, God created dinosaurs. God killed dinosaurs. God created man. Man created dinosaurs, and now dinosaurs is killing man. I can't remember the movie. Huh? Jurassic Park. Yes.
I think you misquoted it.
Something.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Yeah,
Is
something-
but it was something like that.
God created man, or they said God created man, man killed God, God created dinosaurs, dinosaurs killed man.
Maybe that's what it was. Something like yeah. It was, but I mean that's just it. We're trying to put ourselves in the place of God. Now we are created in the image of God, and so it is part of us to create things, right? We love creating things, making things with our own hands. We get stuff out of that, you know. And that's just part of it. But then we also have that part of sin that causes us to build things that destroys things, that kills other people. We've never in the history of mankind have we been able to kill so many people with so few things, right? I mean, for us, but it's because of sin, because of our nature of sin that we do this. And so we see Moses come down the mountain. You know, God's telling him, go down, because your people that you brought out of Egypt have sinned, become corrupt. He wasn't just the 3,000, he was talking about all of Israel. Why? Because they could have stood up against 3,000 and they didn't. So because of that, they became entangled with that same sin because they didn't do anything. It was as if they had. What is it? You say nothing, you do nothing, you're part of the problem, right? And so that's what's happening here. And then Moses pleads with God, and he even brings it up and says these that we are your people, who you brought out of Egypt, right? So we see that he's identifying himself. He could, I mean, God promised him, hey, I'll destroy them, and I'll make you a great people, right? Still following the promise of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Just get rid of those guys, you know. It's kind of like like sometimes we say, you know, I'd be a great man if it wasn't for these people that are under me, you know. They just listen to me and do what I tell them, right? Well, God would be a great God if they would just do what I say, but they don't. So I guess maybe I just get rid of them and start over, right? But, you know, Moses was put in that place just like Abraham was. God revealed to him what he was going to do to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham stood the gap for the people. He placed himself there. You wouldn't kill the righteous with the unrighteous, would you? That's not right, you know. And he was able to negotiate with God. If there could just be 10 righteous people. And there weren't any. That's sad. There weren't any. But Moses is able to bargain with God. God isn't going to go with Israel. No, I'm done. I'm going to send my angel. He can go with you instead, because if I go, I'm just going to kill you all because I can't stand to be around you because you're so stiff-necked. You won't listen. You won't obey. You won't listen. I have life for you, but you just want death, you know. But Moses is able to talk him into it, and we see that. Moses goes down with the 2 tablets written on both sides, copy of each of the 10 utterances, the 10 commandments. And as he gets down closer and he sees the golden calf, he sees what the people have done and are doing, and he throws down the tablets at the bottom of the mountain and they shatter, which we just read this week too, is a picture of the breaking of the covenant. They weren't ready. If Moses had brought that down to them, they would have been worthy of destruction because they had broken the covenant. But Moses broke the tablets, showing that the covenant had been broke.
Probably smacked himself on the head too.
Yeah. Oy vey.
That's why they fell.
Yeah. So there they are. And then I like, the Ten Commandments, it shows him throwing the tablets at the golden calf and it exploding and stuff like that. But he breaks at the bottom of the mountain. And he goes and melts the golden calf down in the fire and he grinds it and he puts it in the water and makes the people drink. Well, we're going to see this too, because there's as we get in here further, there's called the trial of the bitter waters. And what's interesting is that when the husband thinks that his wife has committed adultery against him, that he can bring his wife to the high priest or to the priest. Doesn't necessarily have to be the high priest, just a priest, and make this claim, and then the priest will go into this where he gets a cup, takes dust from the floor, and he writes on a parchment the name of God, mixes it right with it. According to tradition, the ink would wash off into the water. And then he would say to the woman to have her repeat that if I have sinned, then may my belly bloat and my innards come out or something like that. I can't remember what they call it. My thigh rot and my belly swell, right? And so then she would drink it. Now there's nothing poisonous or anything bad about this. It was some dust from the ground and some water and a little bit of ink. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's nothing in there that would harm her. But if she did commit this, then it would harm her. It would become something in her that would cause this to happen to her, right? Unlike the religious people in the past that would say, well, if you're cast with,
Or they dip them in dip them in
I mean, stuff that, of course, it's going to kill them, so the innocent person has no way of being innocent, But, yeah, they're just being killed. But God provides us. It's nothing. And so, and same way, we see that Moses does the same thing. He puts the stuff in the water, makes Israel drink, and then he says, all who are with him, he comes to the gate of the camp and he says, all who are with God come to me. And all the tribe of Levi came. All the tribe of Levi came. And he said, put your swords on, go throughout the camp and kill all those, brother, father, cousin, friend, whatever, who has committed this great sin. Kill them. Okay? And people always ask, well, how did they know who to kill? Because it's the trial of the bitter water in a huge example, right? And it says that they went through and killed 3,000. 3,000. How did they know? Because their bellies swelled and they were the ones hobbling and probably trying to get away. And they were killed. And because of it, we see that the tribe of Levi God set them apart as his tribe. His tribe that the priest would come out of, and that tribe would serve God, which also is a forerunner to what Jacob said when his blessing for Levi and Shimon, that they wouldn't have a place in the land, but they would be scattered throughout Israel, throughout their brothers. And we know that happened. Levi, though, became the priesthood and stuff like that. And Simon ended up being swallowed by Judah because there was just so few of them by the time they got there. And stuff that we do know. And they ended up scattered into the tribes. Now, as all this is going on, Moses goes and talks to Aaron, and he's like, well, how could you allow this to happen? Why did you let this happen? And he says, you know this. I'm sure seeing her being killed because he stood up against her, do with the two. And that's why we see why, God still called him to be the priest, the high priest, is that there was fear in him. He didn't know what to do. Moses was gone. So he didn't want to be killed, and so he just relented, right? Sometimes we. Yeah, and I think he repented of it. I don't think he really meant to do it. I think he was just scared and didn't know what to do. And we've been there. We've been scared and stuff like that because it's his life on the line and his family. He's got his family and stuff, but he let this happen. So with this, Moses tells the people, he takes the tent of meeting outside the camp. They're no longer worthy to have it in the middle. Because we read, because the tabernacle was in the midst of the camp, right? That's where it was supposed to be. In this sense, God removes it. Once Moses has removed it from inside the camp to outside of the camp. So if they want to hear from God and stuff, they got to go outside the camp to go to the tent of meeting and so forth. And we read all that. And so these tablets, and they're lapis lazuli, so they're blue stone with gold on the inside. And so what's really neat about this is that when God wrote on these tablets, it was blue, but the words were in gold. And we know gold is a holy of holy, represents the holy of holies, right? And so that's why we see gold on the inside of the tabernacle, inside the tent. And as we go from silver to bronze or copper, bronze, silver, and gold. Okay, a more precious stone as you go further into God, right? So we see God's writing is in gold. But now these are destroyed, and so God tells, cut yourself a new set, bring it up to me so I can. In reality, in the Hebrew, it doesn't really say whether God writes on it or not. It just says that he put on the tablets the 10 utterances. Okay? That's all it says. It doesn't say who wrote on there. Did Moses write on there? It doesn't matter. The thing is that they're stone. And then he brought these down. So it was, what that represented is a renewed covenant, the renewing of the covenant. Israel had broken it, so the first tablets were broken. The new tablets, which were brought up by Moses, cut out by Moses, and then written on by God or Moses, we don't know, it never doesn't say. Many speculated it was God who wrote on them, or also speculated it was Moses who wrote on them. Either way, it was a renewing of the covenant, more in the kind of the same way that we are right now. God has made this covenant. God made a covenant with Israel. And yes, they would break parts of it and stuff, but because of the Abrahamic covenant, which God made with himself, but gave to Abraham honorarily, like an honorary degree, because he knew that Abraham would break it too, which he did, and we read about later after this is made, that Abraham breaks it by not trusting God and having a son through the slave woman, thinking that he's going to do it. Well, because of that, we can always go back to that and know that that's not been broken, and that God can then work with us again, continue, when we've repented and stuff. And we see that the people have repented. We see them take off their earrings and stuff like that, and they stay at their tents. They don't move out of there. And when they see Moses go into the tent, they get down and prostrate themselves until he gets up. And this is a time that was taken seriously, because God was serious, and God is serious, And that Moses brings a new set of tablets, the renewing of the covenant. And when we talk about the new covenant, that's one thing that we need to look at. We have what they call the old covenant, and then the new covenant, right? The old covenant is a misnomer. It's the covenant. The new covenant is the renewing of that covenant in a different way. How? In Jeremiah 31, let me go there, I'll read it. 31:31, I think it is. Let's see. Uh, in the Jewish Bible, it's verse 30. In the Christian Bible, it's verse 31. Here the days are coming, says Adonai, when I will make a new covenant. Now in Hebrew, this word new actually means a renewing, a refreshing of the covenant with the house of Israel. It's not a brand new covenant. It's not something brand new. It's like when you buy socks, you wear them, and you wash them, and you dry them, they come out, and now they're new. Not brand new, they're just refreshed, right? That's what we see here. When I will make a renewed covenant, a refreshing of the covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, it will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers on the day I took them by the hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt, because they for their part violated my covenant, even though I for my part was a husband to them, says Adonai. Verse 32. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Adonai. I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Now here we see here. Now it sounds the same, right? Because it is the same, all right? And yes, Israel did break it because in essence it was outside of us. It was outside our nature, which had changed because of the fall. Our nature had become to do evil. It's hard to do good. We want to do good and we struggle with it right now because it's not part of who we are. It's not part of our DNA because of the fall of man, right? But God makes a promise. I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God and they will be my people. God says He's going to put it within us and write it on our hearts. What He's saying, and especially with the science we can see today, is that God created us with this DNA. And God's going to change our DNA. We're still going to be human beings, but He's going to do something different. He's going to write His Torah in our DNA, and no longer will it be possible for us to sin because it will be unnatural for us to sin. Whereas right now it's natural for us to sin, and it's hard to do good. We struggle, right? Paul even says we struggle. He dies daily to sin, daily. But when God writes it in our hearts and our minds, right, it's going to be a part of it. It's going to be part of our DNA. It's going to be impossible for us to sin against God. No longer will we sin. No longer will any of them teach his fellow community member, brother, or not. All will love me, from the least of them to the greatest, because I will forgive their wickedness and remember their sins no more. That's what He's going to do. It's a renewing of the covenant, but instead of being written on stone tablets, He's going to write it, put it in us, and write it on our hearts. It's going to become part of our DNA, part of who we are, that we're not going to want to sin. And this happens at the end of the Messianic age. It's not something that happens during the Messianic age, the 1,000-year reign of Messiah. This comes at the end, in the 8th day. The 8th day is the number for renewal, for what's rebirth, I'm trying to think of the name. New beginnings, there we go. New beginnings. So it's new beginnings. And in that time, the earth is going to revert back to its original creation mode that God created it for. Sin and death are not going to be a part of it. And not only that, but it says, I think it's in Isaiah, I can't remember exactly where, but it says, then we will be welcome to eat from the fruit of the tree of life. Okay? It's at that time that it will be offered to us to eat. And what I'll tell you right now is that if you would look and see, take a look at the Torah, it is the tree of life. It itself doesn't give life. but it causes us to walk in that direction, to be able to be offered the tree of life. Even in 1 John, let me see, find it here. If I can find it here. Oh yeah, go all, yeah, skip all these books. Here we go. Let's see. Where's that? Which one it is? Let's try to read that one. Just missing. Okay, 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Everyone who keeps sinning is violating Torah. Indeed, sin is violation of Torah. So, what is sin? Sin is violation of Torah. Everyone keeps sinning. The Torah is there, but it's outside of us. We have to read it to bring it into us, right? And so our nature is already in us to sin, and we have to overcome it. If our nature was not to sin, we wouldn't have to overcome it. And so our nature will then change after the end of the Messianic age, after the 1,000-year reign, into the world to come, the new beginnings, the new world, new heaven, new earth, which, huh? But now you get to choose, yes. And at the end of the 1,000-year reign is the final battle, where people get to choose. And it says the adversary is released at that time, and he gathers his armies of the children of men. Just like Israel, when they were in Egypt and came out, they seen the mighty miracles that God did, and many of them just could not believe. They were going to do their own thing. And even during this 1,000-year reign, people, millions of people are going to choose the adversary, choose their own way, and not God. After living 1,000 years in a perfect society, they're going to choose. Why? Because it's their nature. We have to overcome, right? We have to overcome that nature, to die daily to it. But in the world to come, it won't be our nature. We won't even think about it. It's going to be so far removed from us. It says he's going to remove those sins from us. No longer will be a part of it. Won't be a part of us. But his ways, his Torah, his laws, his instructions, everything, all that stuff will be a part of our DNA. It'll be part of our nature. We could never go against God. We choose. We get to choose life and death, good and evil, curse, blessing. Right? He's given all these choices for us, and we can. But it's a struggle day to day, right? In this world, it's a struggle to do what's right. When you got all these things surrounding us that point to us and try and tempt us to do what's wrong, and we know it's wrong, right? But this is what we have to look forward to. I mean, how many people are tired of sin in their lives? You know? You don't have to raise your hand, but I mean, who that stuff? You know?
It feels like we're fighting against everything.
Yeah, fighting against everything, it seems. But that fight will come to an end. We're going to have peace during the 1,000-year reign. It's going to be an awesome time. Not going to be much different than what we have here, except it's going to be peaceful. We're not going to have the temptations of the adversary and stuff like that. And we're going to have Yeshua as our prince. You know, we'll see what God has promised us, and then partake in the world to come after that. Right? That's what we get to look forward to, is being changed. It says we'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye. Well, what are we going to be changed into? I know people say, oh, we're going to be changed into heavenly bodies and stuff like that. No. I mean, that's part of it, you know. But the most important part is that God's going to change our DNA in the twinkling of an eye. Put His Torah in us, within us, and write it on our hearts. That's what we get to look forward to, because we made the choice. We've chosen God, and we will have that. That'll happen to us. And no longer will we be living for ourselves, because ourselves right now are selfish. You know, me, I, myself, right? Me, myself, and I. Right, that's where it comes from, because that's what this world is about, and that's what this world is about. Everyone that we see, all these different movements and stuff are going on, are selfish movements, not about other people. You know, they say they are. You know, hear about this social justice and stuff. Well, it's narcissism, exactly. They don't care about other people. They only care about themselves, and even making themselves look good before man. That's why even Yeshua and God even said, you know, don't show yourself these things in front of man. Do them in secret. You know.
And they show their true colors too every time they, they fall challenge.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with the challenge internally like a good person would do and being better, they get very aggressive.
Yep. Yep. So as we go this week, just remember that promise and try and overcome. I mean, God already knew that we weren't going to overcome everything, that we're going to fail. We win battles and we lose battles, but ultimately we will win the war as long as we stay faithful and just and walk in His ways to the best of our ability. That's all we can do. And through Yeshua, it makes it possible for us to be righteous. But don't let it go to your head, right? Be humble. Walk humbly with your God. Do justice. Love justice. How's it go? But to do justly, have mercy, and to walk humbly with our God, right? Have mercy. How many of you are, you know, we see people and maybe something's not right with them or whatever. How many do have compassion on that person? You know, because they got extra struggles in this life, right? You know, I see people snickering at people and stuff like that. Really? Are you better than them? No.
Well, and sometimes all it takes to change the life of somebody who you think is the worst person in the world is a word of encouragement.
Yeah. Somebody who's struggling. We see somebody struggling. You know, I don't know. God had me doing that for a long time. I'd see somebody struggling with stuff, and for some reason I'd become their friend. I'm no better than they were. Yeah, I know. But I have compassion for people. I see people, and you know, to be honest with you, I see a lot of people, and I feel sorry for them, and I pray for them. And then there's people that are haughty and proud and stuff like that, and I feel bad for them too, but not so much. Yeah, yeah. So that's hard too, to have compassion for somebody that does that, you know, because it's just it grates against the rock, the chalkboard with people like that, right? So it's hard to have compassion for them. But think about it. What do they got going on, really? What are they hiding? You know.
Insecurity.
What?
When you said that, it made me think of the one time a girl threatened me when we were doing online classes. She threatened me, but I had like at first, you know, I was like upset and I cried, but after I was like, well, she might be dealing with stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, we don't know, right?
Well, and isolation is bad for people.
Yeah, that was a bad time that COVID time, everybody stayed home, stuff like that, and it didn't curtail anything, anyways.
No.
It didn't stop the spread of it or anything, and made the economy worse. Yeah, but it was just their idea to try and see how much control they could take from the people. That's what they did.
And also weaken like mental health.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah. So
Well, if they can crumble your mental health, and I mean, if they can take your mind from you, then they can take anything.
yeah, yeah.
The only good thing that came out of it was parents realizing what their children were being taught.
What their children? Yeah, exactly. Now, yeah, yeah, exactly. Parents were able to see what was actually going on in school. That's why a lot of schools have started changing their ways. DEI and all these other racist and fantasy things are going away. You know, schools are saying, "No, we're not going to do that." You got schools that are trying to do it, still trying to do it, but parents are standing up saying, "No."
Well, this is why it needs to come out. So that's that closedness, right? You know, thing.
And so that's why we really need to pray for our country too, because you know the time is coming. It says that all the nations will go up against Israel. And I know I hear a lot of people talking about how the United States will stand by Israel and stuff. Away from Israel. We're seeing the movements. We're seeing people in the government, even our own president now, who was defending Israel, is now stepping back and criticizing Israel and condemning Israel. And a lot of it is for politics, not for standing up for what's right, but just politics. I need to get elected again because even though I can't remember anything or remember who I am, I should be the president. I think it's
I don't even know if
I think it's elder abuse.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's elder abuse, but vulnerable adult. Yeah. So all right. So anyways, we'll go ahead and you know. Yeah. So all right. So page 586, we'll say the priestly blessing. Bow your heads. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and grant you peace. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Go and have a blessed Shabbat, rest of Shabbat. Have a great week, Shabbat Tov. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we have our studies at 7. Torah Club on Tuesday, God's Appointed Times on Wednesday. We do have Purim coming up. I think it's on the 23rd is a Saturday night, so we'll have our Purim party and stuff for March. Yep, on the 23rd of March, Saturday night. We'll have a meal, and we'll do the reading of the Book of Esther, all those good things and stuff. And then in April 12th, will be Sally Klein O'Connor will be here on a Friday. We're going to get together, still talk about our plans, looking at doing a pre-Shabbat music service and meal, then to usher in Shabbat and stuff then too. And then Passover at the end of April. Starts on Monday night, the 23rd. Goes through the 28th, I think it is. So that's what we got coming up. And then in May, May 26th, I think it is, we have David and Rivka Costello coming to minister to us on a Sunday. It'll be a Sunday, but on the Saturday night previous to that will be the 33rd day of the Omer, and we'll have a bonfire and cookout here Saturday night after it gets dark, and just have a good time there and enjoy a day of teaching with David and Rivka and stuff. So those are things that are coming up. So, but as you guys go, thank you for coming. Be blessed, and Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.